This is Michael Welch, my informational speech, Ford Mustang, 1965 to 1973, the first generation of America's pony car. Thank you all for being here today. We're going to cover three main points today about the Ford Mustang. The Ford Mustang is 53 years old. It has been in production since the model year 1965 to the present day. There's always been a Mustang in Ford stable since 1965. We're going to go over a brief history. Full histories would take entire books and hours to go over. I'm going to give you a few interesting facts and figures. I'm going to speak about the staying power of the Mustang. And first I'm going to introduce you to a very special lady. This is Victoria Nicole, Tori for short. She is my 1969 Ford Mustang with a 302 V8 coupe 4-speed automatic. My parents purchased her in 1971 and my father and I restored her in 1995. She is currently hibernating in my parents' backyard awaiting a new paint job, but I will refer to her later in the speech. A brief history of the Ford Mustang. Lee Iacocca in 1960 was made the GM of the Ford division. He wanted to make a small, affordable, lightweight car, and so he put together a team. Now, according to Randy Leffingwell in his book, Mustang 40 Years, they called it a Make a Mustang out of a Ford Sprint group. So they took the Falcon Sprint, which was a small car that Ford was currently making, and they tried to make a new vehicle out of it. Well, this led to kind of a Frankenstein. They moved the motor and they did other things, and so they took it off down the road, their production model, and it was very ratchety. It moved around. It wasn't very stable. So Iacocca came up with the idea of, let's make a convertible. There's no top on it, so it's got to be structurally strong. So they made a convertible first. Then they added the roof for the coupe, and then of course came the fastback. I prefer the coupe myself, so you can sit in the back seat without hitting your head. So Brad Bowling, in his book Mustang, great title, right? In the first chapter, he discusses the advertising blitz. So the Mustang debuted in April 17th of 1964 at the New York's World's Fair. The night before, commercials went out on all three television networks. So they had all the bases covered. It was also on the cover of Time and Newsweek. 2,600 newspapers ran advertisements and an additional 24 magazines. It practically reached everyone in the country. The advertising blitz worked. The first day, there were 22,000 Mustangs ordered. So, Mustangs were off to a great start. We get into the power wars now. In 1966, 67, 68, the cars became a little bigger, the engines became a lot bigger. You went from a straight 6 engine or a small V8 now to the big block V8s. So in 1969, which was the peak of the wars, you could get 2 straight line 6s or 8 of the V8s, all the way up to the Boss 429. So you had a lot of power and Mustang muscle. Unfortunately, in 1970, you started the downward trend. The cars remained big, but the engines had to become smaller. The economy was turning. There were new safety regulations. There was emissions testing. So they had to detune the engines. And honestly, insurance prices became too high. You had these kids in their hot rods running over people, so the insurance rates went up. So cars stayed big, but the engines got smaller. And then, of course, in 1973, you had the looming oil crisis and the gas shortage. So that ended the first generation of Mustangs. In 1974 was the Mustang II, much smaller vehicle with a smaller engine. Now, of course, options galore. If you come in the first day, that first morning to pick up your Mustang, to pick it out, you were given a list of 40 options to add to the baseline model. Now, in Peter Henshaw's book, The Ultimate Encyclopedia of the Mustang, he states that for $2,368, you could get a baseline model with a straight 6, 3-speed manual transmission, and the hardtop coupe. And you could add from there. The sky was the limit. You could pick the straight 6s, you could pick a V8, and then, of course, by the late 60s, you could pick all the way up to the drag strip 429. Heaters, you could actually delete the heater out of the vehicle for a credit on your bill. I don't know who would want to do that, but maybe in the Southwest you didn't need a heater. AC, of course, cost a lot of money, but it really wasn't that expensive. The $2,368 is approximately $16,000 in today's money. So, and of course, the two big options: engine size and what color is it. Now, to paraphrase Henry Ford, you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. Of course, he was talking about the Model T in the early 1900s, but this is a paraphrase that my father always loves to quote to me. So Henry Ford obviously wasn't around in 1965. So you could order your Mustang black or one of these 16 colors. You have everything from honey gold metallic to green to poppy red, which I'm told is like an orange, almost General Lee-like color, to Phoenician yellow. Now Wimbledon white is my favorite of this batch because Tory came as a Wimbledon white coupe in 1969. Now, Ford had projected first-year sales of about 100,000. Instead, it sold 418,812 Mustangs, setting a single-year sales record. It was, in brief, Mustang mania. Now, Paul Stenquist wrote an article for the New York Times, My Little Pony, 50 years later, in April of 2014. And this is his quote, and Mustang mania is still around. It was around back then, and it's around now. So Mustangs were in movies, on television. Your buddy had one, and even today, just driving from here to the interstate earlier today, I counted 7 Mustangs. So they're still part of the American society. Now, I couldn't let this go without showing a picture of my favorite Mustang that I don't own. Bullitt's 1968 Fastback. It's a 390 GT with a manual transmission. This is actually Steve McQueen, the king of cool. This is actually a blooper that was left into the movie. He's supposed to make this turn. He missed it, got mad, and burned out going backwards and then down the street. They left it in because he's the king of cool. So now we come to present day society. There's a monthly magazine still, Mustang Monthly. Got it at Books A Million. On the back, advertisements for rebuilding Mustangs. The classic Mustangs in it, they're at auctions. People spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these vehicles. You can get special order parts from all over the world. In '95, when we rebuilt Tory, we actually used paper catalogs from California and Mississippi to get our parts. It's a lot easier now with the internet. Mustangs are generational. It's a Welch family tradition. Your first car is always a Mustang. My cousin Steve got a 66, my cousin Amy a 65, I had a 69, my sister got a 95. 2 years ago, William got his 2008. Now, of course, his is a V6 because insurance money, right? And Peter Henshaw, in his book, quoted the definition of a pony car: a car you could drive to the country club on Friday night, to the drag strip on Saturday, and to church on Sunday. It was a small but sporty, affordable, with room in the back for luggage or a couple of kids. They were baby boomers after all. This is the late 60s, so children could fit nicely, even in a fastback. So in conclusion, first generation Mustangs are still with us. Coupes, convertibles, and fastbacks, Bosses, Mach 1s, and Shelbys, giving their drivers and passengers memories to last a lifetime. So when you're out driving and you glance in the rear view and you see a classic Mustang behind you, do us all a favor and respect your automotive elders and get out of the way. Thank you.